you living for applause or living for true freedom? What happens to your will when no one's clapping? If you only work hard when someone is watching, are you truly alive or just performing? Modern society trains men to be performers on the stage of their own lives. We're taught to grind for admiration, to endure for applause, to chase greatness only when someone is there to validate it. But here's the harsh truth. If your strength depends on being seen, then it's not real strength. If you only train, hustle, or sacrifice when there's an audience, you're not free, you're chained to praise. The Stoic man sees a different truth. He doesn't need permission. He doesn't need applause. He works in the dark. He moves in silence. He bleeds without complaint because he knows who he is, and that's enough. This is the path of grit without glory. Quiet, relentless, uncelebrated. And most men can't handle it, not because they're weak, but because they've never trained themselves to endure the silence. It's easy to grind for a week. It's easy to hustle when people are watching. It's even easy to suffer if you know a reward is coming. But what happens when no one claps, when no one sees the effort? When the grind feels endless and the work feels lonely, that's when most men break. Not for lack of strength, but for lack of self-witnessing. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Ambition means tying your well-being to what other people say or do. Sanity means tying it to your own actions. If you want to be free, you have to build your drive on something deeper than being noticed. You must become your own witness. You must work to your own standard, not for their applause." Why does this matter? Because grit that depends on feedback collapses when silence comes. Working in obscurity builds an inner strength no one can touch. Every day you act without validation, you train true independence. So when you feel tempted to quit, ask, am I quitting because it's hard or because it's quiet? Try this, practice 7 days of silent discipline. No posts, no updates, only results. Replace will anyone notice with will I respect myself if I stop? Because the man who can work unseen becomes the man who cannot be stopped. And remember, what you do in the dark shapes who you are in the light. The hardest part of any journey is not the goal, it's the in-between. The repetition, the grind, the doubt, the long months and years when the rewards don't show up. But that's where your real edge is forged. In the early mornings, in the late nights, in the silence. If what you crave is attention, you'll never build real power. But if what you truly desire is mastery, growth and self-respect, then obscurity becomes your training ground. Why does this matter? Because doing the work unseen builds something far greater than validation. It builds trust in yourself. The man who stays steady in private becomes lethal in public. Private excellence is the foundation for public leadership when the time is right. How to apply it? Create a non-negotiable daily task list, not for social media, not for anyone else but for you. Keep a progress log, not to post, but to prove to yourself that you're moving forward. If no one saw your discipline today, count it as an extra rep, a hidden win. And remember this, you are never more yourself than when no one is watching. Third, glory chases burnout, but mission men never do. When you chase recognition, you drain yourself. You're always wondering, am I doing enough to be noticed? You start measuring your worth based on someone else's reaction. But a mission man, he doesn't care who sees him. He doesn't need their praise or attention, because his mission was never about them. Marcus Aurelius said, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one, no performance, no show, no audition, just execution. You don't chase the spotlight. You light your own fire and move forward." Why does this matter? Because glory fades, but mission fuels you forever. A man with internal purpose is harder to distract, to tempt, or to break. Purpose-driven effort outlasts validation-driven effort. How to apply it? Define your personal mission, not what you want to have, but who you want to be. Ask yourself each day, is what I'm doing today aligned with the person I'm becoming? Ditch the scoreboard, double down on the system. Reminder, work for the mission, not for the moment. Fourth, Your discipline is worth more than their approval. Every time you show up without applause, your discipline gets sharper, stronger. Every silent rep becomes a weapon in the light. People will say it doesn't matter. They'll say, take a break. They'll mock your routines, call your hunger obsession. But this isn't their life, it's yours, and one day, the very people who laughed will need the strength you built while they weren't watching. Epictetus said, first, say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. When you no longer need applause to keep going, you begin tapping into true power. From here, we go deeper. The man with grit knows that external recognition is a nice bonus, but never the reason. He doesn't care to be seen. He wants to become undeniable. Why does this matter? Because every unnoticed effort builds personal credibility. On your hardest days, it's your past discipline, the stuff no one saw, that becomes armor. Grit means doing it, even when no one says thank you, even when no one claps. How to apply it? Create daily rituals that honor your word to yourself, not your image to others. When you feel discouraged, revisit your why. Anchor it to your becoming, not to being seen. Practice enduring boredom with pride, because that's where the gold is. Reminder, the man who keeps showing up, even when no one's watching, is already rare. Fifth, become the kind of man who doesn't need to be told he's doing great. You can tell how mature a man is by how he responds to silence. Some panic when praise disappears. They lose steam. They start begging for affirmation just to stay afloat. But the Stoic man? He doesn't flinch. He knows applause fades. He knows the crowd is fickle. He knows he's doing well because he holds himself to a higher standard. He walks like a king even when no one bows, not out of arrogance but from earned presence. Seneca once said, luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity. You don't get lucky by accident. You get lucky by stacking unseen effort until the door finally opens, and when it does, you're ready. Why does this matter? Because men who are self-driven don't need cheerleaders to stay on course. When you hold yourself to a private standard, you stay consistent under pressure. You earn respect, not through your words, but through your relentless, quiet action. How to apply it? Eliminate emotional dependency on praise. Expect resistance, not recognition. And repeat this in a mantra. I know. I saw me. Review your effort weekly, not to judge, but to adjust and recalibrate. Reminder, be so deeply committed to your mission that praise becomes irrelevant. Sixth, your struggle may very well become the seed of someone else's strength. Most men feel alone in their suffering. They believe no one understands the grind, the silence, the discipline it takes to keep going. But they're wrong. Someone is watching. Someone will remember. Even if it's not today. You don't just train for yourself. You train for the shadow of your younger self still living inside. For the teammate barely holding it together. For the son, the brother, the man beside you. You never know whose path your quiet strength might light up. And when you endure with purpose, you're not just surviving, you're mapping the way. Marcus Aurelius said, what we do now echoes in eternity. Every quiet act of perseverance sends out a signal, a silent message to the world. It is possible to keep going without praise, without reward, without rescue. Why does this matter? Because your struggle, when endured with strength, becomes someone else's roadmap. You become living proof of what inner power looks like. Silent strength multiplies beyond what you can see. How to apply it? Live as if someone weaker is watching you and will one day follow your lead. When you're tempted to quit, ask, what would I want my younger self to see right now? And if you share your story, do it only after you've earned it, through pain. Reminder, grit is not selfish. It quietly lights the way for others. Seventh, loneliness is both a test and a gift. There will be long stretches when no one encourages you. No one checks in. No one says, good job. And this is where most men fall apart. They mistake silence for irrelevance. But to the Stoic, silence is sacred. It's where you learn to need nothing but your mission. where you strip away ego, image, audience, and find out what you're truly made of. Seneca said, "Associate with people who are likely to improve you. Welcome those whom you are capable of improving. Sometimes, for a season, that person is only you. You mentor yourself. You refine yourself. You become your own support system." Why does this matter? Because men who survive loneliness become unstoppable when they later find brotherhood. Solitude is where emotional independence is born. The man who can lead himself needs no babysitter. How to apply it? Don't numb your loneliness. Lean into it as an opportunity for self-discipline. Journal through the hard seasons. Ask yourself, what is this silence teaching me? Treat loneliness as training for leadership. If you can hold yourself, you can hold others. Reminder, no man leads others well until he's mastered solitude. 8th, your grit is your resume. Even if no one's read it yet, we live in a world full of fabricated confidence, photoshopped wins and performative progress. But real grit? It doesn't need marketing. Because when the moment truly comes, the business collapse, the fatherhood decision, the mental breakdown, only one thing will remain. When the spotlight fades, your quiet grit becomes your loudest voice. And one day, it speaks for you when the world goes quiet. Only one thing speaks, what you've actually endured. Epictetus wrote, "Don't demand that things happen as you wish. Wish them to happen as they do, and you will go on well." Men who've been forged in the dark don't panic when tested. They don't collapse. They've already met pain. They know its name. They walk through fire like they've been there before, because they have. Why does this matter? Because grit isn't glamorous, but it works. What you build silently today becomes your unshakable strength when life explodes tomorrow. Your story is being written line by line, rep by rep. How to apply it? Track adversity like a strength log, not a setback list. Don't hide your scars. Learn from them. Use them to reinforce your process. And when others panic, remind yourself you've done harder things alone. Reminder, grit is your resume, and one day it will be read. 9th, when you no longer crave recognition, you've found real freedom. The moment you stop needing praise to validate your work, the moment you stop resenting others for not noticing you, that's the moment you become dangerously free. You're no longer manipulated by approval, no longer chasing shallow admiration. You stop asking, did anyone see that? You just do it, because it's right, because it's yours, because it matters. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." A man who needs no permission, no rescue. He has his mission, his mindset, his self-respect, and he walks with it unapologetically. Why does this matter? Because freedom from external recognition is the final form of internal power. You become consistent regardless of moods, feedback, or trends. Grit becomes a lifestyle, not a performance. How to apply it? Practice gratitude for your own effort. Stop waiting for others to notice. Let each unnoticed act build the habit of personal accountability. Remind yourself, I'm not here for them. I'm here for who I'm becoming. Reminder, when praise no longer excites you and silence no longer discourages you, you're truly free. 10th, this is how legends are made. Quietly, daily, relentlessly. You don't become a legend by going viral. You don't become unbreakable by being admired. You become it by showing up every single day, especially when no one sees, no one helps, and no one claps. Seneca wrote, difficulties strengthen the mind, just as labor strengthens the body. Legends aren't built by applause, they're forged in silence day after day, and grit, not glory, is what time remembers. The Stoic doesn't chase glory. He doesn't seek the spotlight. What he chases is excellence, discipline, and above all, peace with himself. Let others run after popularity. Let them crumble when the applause stops. Let them build castles made of validation. But you build in the mud. You build in the dark. You build on the days that break others, and you keep walking. That's how legends are built. Not loudly, not quickly, but silently, day after day after day. Why does this matter? Because grit isn't glamorous, but it's eternal. The quiet man of discipline will outlast the loud man of charisma. In the end, the world remembers those who refuse to quit. How to apply it? Cement your rituals. Make them so deep they survive any storm. Become your own accountability partner, motivator, and coach. Trust that the quiet work is adding up, because it always does. Reminder, you are writing your legacy, rep by rep, choice by choice, without asking anyone to clap. Final reflection, grit without glory is the highest strength. In a world drunk on attention, the man who can labor in silence becomes rare. He doesn't explain himself. He doesn't beg for likes. He doesn't chase views or praise. He rises early, stays late, trains in the dark, sharpens in silence, because he understands what most Glory is a byproduct. Grit is the root. You want to be the kind of man who's dangerous, not because he's loud, but because he's relentless. The kind who doesn't need an audience to perform at his highest level. The kind who honors his word, his standards, his mission, even if the world sleeps on him. So, if today is quiet, if no one claps, if the results feel slow, good. That means the real work is happening. And when the world finally catches up to your greatness, you'll already be too far down your path to even notice, and that is power. In a world that's getting louder by the day, where everyone wants to be seen, praised, and admired, choosing to live quietly but with relentless discipline is an act of true courage, grit, perseverance. Without glory is the highest form of strength. No applause, no audience, no spotlight. You keep showing up, you keep grinding, you keep growing, because you know who you are and what you're building. It's people like you, the ones who rise early, train in silence, and live for purpose, not attention, who are writing a legacy that no one can erase. They don't need to be known, because they've already become undeniable. So if today you find yourself walking alone, no cheers, no attention, no applause, remember this: you don't need them. You only need one thing to keep going. Keep training. Keep your word to yourself. Be silent, but unstoppable, because in the moments you think no one is watching, you're becoming unshakable. If this video spoke to you, don't just watch it. Live it. Share it with a friend, a brother, or even your younger self. Someone who needs to hear this right now. And don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and drop a comment below. What will you do today, even if no one sees it?